At Hall Paul Villa, the dead are not hidden away. They're painted in colour, built in plaster, arranged beneath the Singapore sun in scenes of judgment, punishment, mercy and warning. There are demons with weapons, judges with ledgers, souls being dragged through the courts of the afterlife, and sinners learning too late that nothing done in life has gone unseen. It's not a haunted house, it's not a cemetery, it's not a temple in the quiet sense. Hall Paul Villa is stranger than that. It's a place where old beliefs about death, karma, and the underworld were made visible, turned into statues and tunnels, and scenes that generations of visitors would never quite forget. Children were brought here to learn what might happen to liars, thieves, cheats, and the cruel. Adults walked through it half amused and half unsettled, because however bright the colours were, the message underneath was dark. Every life has consequences, every soul is judged. And beyond the world of the living, the gates do not simply open onto peace. They open onto the 10 courts of hell.
Hey, it's your ceiling vent, so I'm dripping. Could be the rain, could be the upstairs bathroom. Yikes. You could hire the guy your neighbor recommended, but I'm pretty sure that's just his cousin. Do we know if he's licensed, or does he just own a ladder?
Listen to your home. Go with Thumbtack. Upload a photo or voice note and we'll diagnose your project and match you with the right pro for the job. Thumbtack. We know homes. Hire the right pro today.
Support for this podcast comes from Progressive, America's #1 boat insurer. We've all made mistakes on the water, but there's one mistake you shouldn't make, being uninsured. With Progressive Boat Insurance, you can choose coverage for most mistakes you or other boaters could make, helping you float carefree all season long. Quote today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. #1 rating based on 2024 filings with state departments of insurance.
Queen Carvania stood haloed by the morning sun. An army hung on her every word.
My champions, I have sold my chariot on Carvana. 'Twas a lovely SUV, an inexplicably queenly offer. They're even coming to the castle to collect it. Tonight, we feast! An offer you can feast on. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
Thumbtack presents Tile Trouble. Every single time I use my sink, I make eye contact with the uneven grout on my kitchen backsplash. The crooked corners eye me, and I'm haunted by more tiling questions than I thought possible. What kind of pro can fix a backsplash? Can I replace one cracked tile, or should I replace them all? What if I just use Thumbtack? I can hire top-rated pros, read reviews, and compare prices with a tap, all on the app. Thumbtack knows homes. Download the app today.
Whoever said fork in the road must have been hungry for the Sorrento and Sorrento Turbo Hybrid. Their 3-row seating and 10-year, 100,000-mile limited powertrain warranty. With a capable Sorrento and Sorrento Turbo Hybrid, every way forward is the right way. Visit your local Kia dealer today. Kia, movement that inspires.
Call 800-333-4KIA for details. Drive safely. See retailer for warranty details.
Hello, I'm Sarah, and welcome to The Whispering Woods Haunted. I'm on my own for this episode. Toby is having a bit of a rough time. He's still got his bad back. He's still got that injury. And he's been to the dentist. And so his talking isn't great at the moment. So I'm giving him a week off. I'm not a slave driver anyway, just so everybody knows. I didn't push him into it because I don't want to be one of those parents. But anyway, this haunted episode, we are going to Singapore as part of Hungry Ghost Month. I'll get straight into it. Are you ready for the story? On a hill overlooking Singapore stands one of the strangest places ever built. There are dragons coiled around rocky outcrops, giant crabs battling mythical creatures, immortals riding clouds, demons dragging sinners towards the underworld, and colourful statues that seem to belong somewhere between a temple, a museum, and the pages of an ancient storybook. At first glance, Paul Villa feels almost impossible to categorise. It isn't a theme park, nor is it a temple. It isn't quite a museum either. Instead, it's a place where folklore has been given physical form. Every path leads to another legend. Every corner reveals another moral lesson. Every statue tells a story that has been passed down through generations across China and Southeast Asia. Today, visitors come because they've heard about its famous 10 courts of hell. That was never the original intention. The story begins with two brothers. Boon Ho and Boon Pa were born in Burma, now Myanmar, to a Chinese family whose father practiced traditional medicine. After his death, the brothers inherited the family business and developed a herbal ointment that would become known around the world as tiger balm. By the 1930s, tiger balm had made the brothers immensely wealthy. Instead of retreating into private estates, Boon Ho decided to build something rather unusual. Construction began in 1937 on a villa overlooking Pasir Panjang Road, surrounded by landscaped gardens filled with sculptures illustrating Chinese history, religion, and folklore. Rather than keeping the grounds for himself, he opened them to the public free of charge. His ambition was surprisingly simple. He believed stories were one of the best ways to teach people how to live. Many visitors at the time could not read, particularly older generations who had arrived in Singapore from southern China. A book of moral lessons would reach only a limited audience. A garden filled with hundreds of brightly coloured statues could teach everyone. As visitors wandered through the grounds, they encountered scenes from some of the best-known stories in Chinese culture. The Monkey King from Journey to the West appeared alongside the 8 immortals. There were dragons, phoenixes, legendary generals, Confucian tales of filial piety, and Buddhist stories about compassion and consequence. Every display carried a message. Some celebrated loyalty, others warned against greed, dishonesty, or arrogance. Children were encouraged to ask questions, while parents explained the stories behind each sculpture. The park became part classroom, part public art gallery, and part cultural archive, preserving traditions that many immigrants feared might gradually disappear in a rapidly modernising Singapore. The Second World War interrupted that vision. During the Japanese occupation of Singapore between 1942 and 1945, Pa Villa was seized by the occupying forces. Boon Ho himself escaped before the invasion, while the villa suffered damage during the conflict. After the war, the gardens were restored and reopened, once again welcoming thousands of visitors each year. As Singapore changed around it, Pa Villa remained remarkably unchanged. Glass office towers rose across the city. Expressways replaced old country roads. Apartment blocks stretched towards the skyline. Yet behind its gates, ancient stories continued to unfold exactly as they had decades before. There are now more than 1,000 statues and around 150 large dioramas spread throughout the park. Together they form one of the world's largest collections of Chinese folklore presented in a single location. Most visitors arrive expecting something unusual. Few expect what comes next. Because hidden among the colourful legends and heroic tales is one attraction that generations of Singaporeans remember more vividly than anything else. It's a journey into the afterlife itself, and for many children growing up in Singapore, it became the parts of Folklore Villa they never forgot. One of the most remarkable things about the villa is that it doesn't rush you towards its darkest attraction. Instead, it encourages you to wander. Your paths twist gently through the gardens, revealing scene after scene from Chinese mythology. There are smiling immortals seated among clouds, dragons emerging from rock faces, enormous carp leaping waterfalls, and colourful figures from stories that have been told for centuries. The atmosphere feels almost playful. Children climb on statues while parents stop to explain the characters they remember from their own childhoods. Bright colours dominate the landscape. Reds, greens and golds stand out against the tropical vegetation. And for long stretches, it's easy to forget that Folklore Villa is famous for something far more unsettling. That contrast is entirely deliberate. The founders never intended visitors to arrive immediately at the most disturbing lessons. Instead, they're first introduced to stories celebrating wisdom, courage, kindness and compassion. The journey begins with examples of how life should be lived, before asking what happens when those values are ignored. It's only as you continue deeper into the grounds that the mood begins to shift. The statues become less playful. The colours seem darker. Mythical creatures that once appeared protective now take on a more intimidating appearance. Demons begin appearing among the displays. Expressions become sterner. Smiles give way to grim faces staring silently from behind painted eyes. Eventually, almost without realising it, visitors find themselves standing before one of the most recognisable entrances anywhere in Singapore. Above the doorway, unmistakable Chinese characters announce what lies beyond. This is Hell's Museum. The name is modern, but the ideas behind it are ancient. For many visitors, especially those unfamiliar with Chinese beliefs surrounding the afterlife, there is an understandable temptation to compare it with the Christian idea of hell. In reality, the two are very different. The hell depicted here is not necessarily a place of eternal punishment. Instead, it forms part of a much longer spiritual journey. Traditional Chinese beliefs surrounding the afterlife draw from several different philosophies that have become intertwined over centuries. Buddhism contributes ideas about karma, rebirth, and the consequences of one's actions. Taoism introduces its own deities and spiritual bureaucracy, while Confucianism places enormous importance on morality, family responsibility, and respect for others. According to these traditions, when a person dies, their soul does not immediately pass into paradise or condemnation. Instead, it enters the underworld, where every action committed during life is examined. Waiting within the underworld are 10 judges, often known as the 10 Kings of Hell or the 10 Kings of Yama. Each presides over one court, and each examines a different aspect of a person's life. Their task is not simply to punish, but to determine what should happen next. For the virtuous, the journey through the courts may be brief. For others, every lie, every theft, every broken promise, and every act of violence must first be answered for. Only once those judgments have been completed can the soul continue towards its next life. Every scene illustrates the consequence of a particular choice. The sculptures were never intended simply to frighten children. They were intended to ask a question. How should a person live if every action is remembered? Generations of Singaporeans have answered that question, while standing exactly where the visitor now stands. Many remember gripping a parent's hand before stepping through the doorway. Others recall laughing nervously with school friends, pretending not to be frightened by what they were about to see. Almost all remember emerging in silence. Because beyond those doors, the colourful stories of Folklore Villa disappear. Ahead lies a journey through 10 courts, where every decision made in life is weighed, judged, and repaid. And the first thing every soul encounters is not torture, it's the truth. The journey begins with the first court. Here sits the first king, King Quan Wan, the ruler who receives every soul entering the underworld. In front of him there are no excuses, no witnesses to persuade, and no opportunity to rewrite the past. Every person arrives carrying the complete record of the life they have lived. According to traditional belief, the dead are brought before the judge by ghostly officials, their earthly lives already recorded in great ledgers. Nothing has been forgotten. Every kindness, every betrayal, every promise kept, and every promise broken is preserved. Perhaps the most striking object in the first court is the mirror of retribution. It's not an ordinary mirror. Rather than reflecting a person's appearance, it reveals the truth of their life. Hidden actions become visible. Private cruelties are no longer secret. Lies succeeded in the world of the living lose all meaning here. Only once the soul has seen itself as it truly was can judgment continue. The second court examines those who caused harm through deception and corruption. Traditional accounts describe officials weighing evidence before sentences are passed, with each punishment carefully matched to the offence committed during life. The ideas run throughout all 10 courts. The suffering is never random. It reflects the choices made while alive. Visitors soon realise that this is not a place where evil is measured only through murder or violence. Much smaller acts also carry consequences. Cheating, dishonesty, taking advantage of others, abusing positions of trust. The message would have been immediately understood by the ordinary families who visited Folklore Villa during the 1940s and 50s. These were lessons intended for everyone, not just criminals. As the journey continues into the third court, the scenes become more graphic. This court is traditionally associated with those who created conflict through lies, slander, or false accusations. Figures kneel before demonic officials. Tongues are pulled from open mouths. The symbolism requires little explanation. Those who use speech to destroy the lives of others lose the very thing they misused. The punishments are visual metaphors. Every scene teaches something. Every image carries a moral lesson. By the time the visitors leave the third court, one thing has become very clear. The underworld operates according to rules that cannot be bribed, manipulated, or escaped. Status no longer matters, neither does wealth. The poorest labourer and the richest merchant stand before the same judges, facing exactly the same question: how did you live? For many visitors, that is where the unease begins to deepen. Because it's one thing to look at statues, and it's another to quietly imagine which court might be waiting for you. If the first courts establish the truth, the middle courts deliver the consequences. This is a section of Folklore Villa that's become famous around the world, largely because of its graphic sculptures. Visitors who know little about Chinese beliefs often remember the vivid punishments long after they've forgotten which court they were standing in. As visitors move deeper into the exhibit, they encounter souls who abuse their position in life, corrupt officials, dishonest merchants, thieves, and those who exploited others for personal gain are shown receiving punishments intended to reflect the nature of their crimes. One of the most recognizable scenes shows sinners being forced to climb a mountain, covered entirely in knives. Known as the Mountain of Knives, it appears in several Chinese depictions of the underworld. Every step brings fresh injury, yet there's no way around it, and no shortcut to the top. Traditional accounts often associate this court with offences such as fraud, exploitation, and serious betrayal, particularly crimes committed knowingly and without remorse. The punishment reflects the belief that deliberate harm carries greater responsibility than honest mistakes. Elsewhere, statues depict bodies being crushed beneath gigantic stones, or ground between enormous rollers. They are visual metaphors. Someone who spent their life crushing others beneath debt, corruption, or oppression eventually finds themselves experiencing the same loss of control. Visitors quickly notice another theme running through these courts. Many of the sins involve family. Respect for parents has long occupied a central place within Confucian teaching, and Folklore Villa reflects that importance throughout the 10 courts. Children who neglected elderly parents, abandoned family responsibilities, or treated relatives with cruelty are shown receiving particularly severe judgment. In Chinese tradition, the underworld operates almost like an imperial court or government bureaucracy. Every official has a responsibility. Every judgment follows an established order. The punishments are severe, but they are not chaotic. Justice, rather than revenge, is the guiding principle. The idea becomes increasingly important as the journey continues, because unlike many ideas of hell found elsewhere in the world, the 10 courts are not intended to keep souls forever. The purpose is correction, reflection, purification. Eventually, every soul reaches the final stages of its journey. Because beyond punishment comes another chance to begin again. By the time the visitors reach the final courts, something becomes clear. This is not simply a journey through punishment, it's a journey towards another beginning. As the soul passes through the later courts, the emphasis gradually changes. The worst offences have already been judged, the consequences have been endured, and attention turns instead to preparing for what comes next. According to traditional belief, once the sentence imposed by the 10 kings has been completed, the soul eventually reaches the 10th court. Here presides Suanlun Wong, the king responsible not for punishment but for rebirth. His task is to decide where each soul will begin its next life. Not every soul returns as a human being. Before the rebirth can take place, however, there is one final ritual, perhaps the most poignant in the entire journey. The soul is led to Mengpo. Unlike the fearsome judges and horned demons that dominate the earlier courts, Mengpo is usually depicted as an elderly woman, quietly waiting beside a bridge. In front of her sits a bowl. Inside is the soup of forgetfulness. Every soul must drink it. Only then can they leave the underworld. The purpose of the soup is simple. It erases every memory of the life that has just ended. Parents are forgotten. Children disappear from memory. Friendships, love, regret, success, failure, everything. Without those memories, the soul crosses the bridge and enters a new life, entirely unaware of the countless lives that came before. The afterlife depicted at Folklore Villa is not driven by revenge. It's driven by consequence. The goal is not eternal suffering. It's moral balance. Every punishment exists because every action matters. Every judgment exists because every life has value. Every rebirth offers another opportunity to make different choices. The 10 courts become something very different from a haunted attraction. They become a lesson. That was exactly what Ah Boon Ho intended. People were supposed to leave thinking about honesty, kindness, respect, responsibility. The frightening images simply ensured they would remember the lesson. And remember it they did. They remember being frightened. Some remember hiding behind their parents. Others remember refusing to walk any further. The 10 courts achieved something few educational exhibits ever manage. They stayed with people for life. Yet there's another reason Folklore Villa continues to attract visitors. Not because of the lessons, not because of the mythology, but because after the crowds have gone home and darkness settles over the gardens, many people insist the atmosphere changes completely. Some say that it's simply imagination. Others are not so sure. As the crowds thin out, the tropical heat begins to fade, and long shadows stretch across the sculptures. Figures that looked theatrical in daylight suddenly appear almost lifelike. Nothing has changed, yet everything feels different. It's a reaction that appears repeatedly in visitor accounts. Very few people claim to have witnessed dramatic paranormal events. Instead, they describe something much harder to define. A sense of being observed, an unexpected reluctance to linger in certain parts of the park. The feeling that, despite knowing every statue is made from painted concrete, they somehow don't want to turn their back on them. Once you've walked through scenes of judgment, punishment, and the afterlife, your mind begins interpreting the surroundings differently. The statues haven't changed. You have. That doesn't stop the stories. Local ghost tours have included Folklore Villa for years, particularly after sunset. Guides often pause outside Hell's Museum before recounting tales shared by visitors over the decades. Some describe hearing footsteps behind them. Others speak of cold patches of air on otherwise humid evenings, or the sensation that someone has quietly fallen into step behind them. As with all folklore, the details vary. One visitor remembers glancing towards a statue and briefly thinking its expression has changed, before convincing themselves they must have imagined it. Another recalls hearing what sounded like whispered conversation inside Hell's Museum, despite finding no one else nearby. Others insist the silence itself is the unsettling part. Singapore is one of the busiest cities in the world. Traffic is rarely far away. People are almost always nearby. Yet there are moments inside Hallport Villa when the outside world seems strangely distant, as though the gardens exist in their own quiet pocket beneath the surrounding skyline. Even the statues contribute to that feeling. There are more than 1,000 of them spread throughout the ground. Some smile, others stare. Some appear to be in conversation. Others simply watch. No matter where you stand, there is often another face looking in your direction. That has led to countless photographs circulating online, with visitors convinced they have captured something unusual. Most turn out to be clever angles, unexpected shadows, or tricks of the light. Occasionally, someone notices what they believe to be an extra figure standing among the sculptures. For most of the year, Hallport Villa is simply an unusual place to visit. Then the 7th lunar month begins. The incense appears first. Across Singapore, families begin placing offerings outside homes, beneath housing blocks and beside pavements. Joss paper burns in metal bins, sending ash drifting into the evening air, while fruit, rice and tea are carefully arranged for ancestors and wandering spirits. The customs take place across the city, yet nowhere do they seem more fitting than here. Hallport Villa is built around the same beliefs that give Hungry Ghost Month its meaning. The underworld, the judgment of the soul, the consequences of the life that has just ended.
Thumbtack presents Uncertainty Strikes. I was surrounded. The aisle and the options were closing in. There were paint rollers, satin and matte finish, angle brushes, and natural bristles. There were too many choices. What if I never got my living room painted? What if I couldn't figure out what type of paint to use? What if I just used Thumbtack? I can hire a top-rated pro that knows everything about interior paint, easily compare prices, and read reviews. Thumbtack knows homes. Download the app today.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have trusted Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years. Just tell Progressive what you want to pay, and they'll show you coverage options that fit your budget. Visit Progressive.com to find a car insurance rate that works for you. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
So fascinating. I really want to go and have a look around, but at night, so I can feel the figures watching me. It's one of those places, how interesting, how intriguing. First of all, I was kind of a bit like, how patronising that you need to build this kind of temple to teach everybody about what your personal morals are. But the more I looked into it, the more I was sort of like, okay, I get it. Love to know what you think. And that's it from me today. I hope you enjoyed. And I'll catch you again tomorrow for the main episode. Take care, everyone. The stories told on the Whispering Woods are inspired by historical records, witness reports, and local folklore. While every effort is made to research and represent events accurately, some details, names, and locations may differ from official accounts or have been changed out of respect for those involved. These episodes are created for storytelling and entertainment purposes, and should not be considered definitive fact or investigative journalism.